Thursday. I didn't even have to do anything for this one. I appreciate it, though.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to continue on with our media availabilities this afternoon. We're now joined by Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. If you have a question for Denny, please raise your hand. We will get a microphone to you. We're going to start up front here with Zach.
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Denny, how do you reflect on your win here a year ago now, that battle with Kyle? Obviously, you two guys were the best that day as it was. How do you reflect on that particular battle?
I mean, I haven't reflected on it much this week other than, the highlights that you see. But, yeah, it was a fierce battle. I thought we were the best two guys, and he got out to a lead there, and I just remember kind of chasing him down there right towards the end when I saw he was getting loose. And so I didn't, it's so race to race that, I can't just go back. We got a different car, especially different Camry nowadays, and certainly we have a new tire coming into this race. So there's not much I can really put together other than how do I attract this, how do I attack this track to get speed?
Let's go to Lee.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. I've got two questions for you. One is the key for you, sometimes this is out of your control, but is the key for you after what you've endured over the last how many years is just staying healthy, not get injured, just have yourself be 100% behind the wheel?
Yeah, it's certainly the biggest obstacle, I think, to the longevity of my career for sure, but I feel like I'm in a decent spot for sure. Even when I don't feel great at the car, I do in the car, which is the most important thing to, keeping this thing going. So I do, age sucks, like all of us in this room know. So it's just part of it, and sometimes you got to just suck it up. But otherwise, I'm doing a lot of work to make sure that I can keep this thing going as long as I can.
And as far as Gabe Hart and just his influence on you, somebody said to me that they were at a test and they heard the way that he breaks it down to you, and the kind of feedback that you give back to him is unlike anything they had heard with any crew chief in the past. Is it just come down to basic communication between the two of you, why you have flourished under his direction?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good part of it. He does a really good job, in my opinion, of asking the right questions and thought-provoking questions that maybe I can bounce back off of him. So I think we're asking each other the right things, and then that's equaling. We're working on the right stuff because of that. I think it's really easy nowadays to kind of get off on a track, and then next thing you know, you've kind of lost the ball and you don't know where to find it. And so once we get kind of a home base of where we feel comfortable at a certain track, we stay pretty close to that, and we make sure that we continue to prepare the way that we prepare each and every week. And Chris just does a great job of going to get the next bit of speed, wherever it might be. And then for me personally, it's continuing to work on all the flaws that I've got.
Go ahead, Rob.
Denny, Rob Collins with Fox here in Kansas City. I saw on Twitter you had fun calling your shot at Dover and the great Hambino. You got to repeat. You calling it this week?
Yeah, I think he's actually going to be at North Wilkesboro. Oddly enough, that'll be funny to meet him. But I thought that Chris gave me the task of winning one of the next 3 races before we had the All-Star break, and we got the first week. So now from here on out, I think that we can be in a good mood by the time we get to that All-Star break, and certainly these next 2 tracks are set up really nicely for us. So I'm certainly encouraged by it, but you don't want to use up all your promises too much early in the season. So I'll try to save a few.
Okay, let's go to Bob and then Jeff.
Bob Hawkers, Fox Sports. Obviously, a lot of stuff on the charters talked about this week. I'm curious, how are you going to stay united through all this, as far as what you guys want?
I feel like we have been. I think that it's just a tough situation because every team does want a little different things here and there. There's some 4 basics that we all feel like we deserve. But, each team has, how they were prioritized, those top 4 might be different for each team, but the 4 things really encapsulates what all the teams want. That would make all the teams happy. But, why this is such an important thing is we've had 11 teams go out of business since 2016. That's not good. And certainly, if we can continue on the trend of, a couple stakeholders doing really well and one not, that will continue, and that's not going to be good for our sport.
What do you think is NASCAR's most difficult oval?
Darlington is probably the most difficult oval, just because of how much focus it takes to run fast there. The conditions are always changing. The grip level of the track changes. How close you have to run to the wall to make your car run quick. Just all those things. Just the difference in the turns 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. All those things are just really, really difficult to wrap your head around, and why it takes guys sometimes a long time to get good there.
Yeah, Denny Randy Kovitz, Kansas City Star. I want to ask you about a former teammate. Carl Edwards is a finalist for the Hall of Fame in a couple weeks. If he were to make it, just what makes Carl a Hall of Famer, if indeed you believe he is?
Yeah, I think what makes him a Hall of Famer is probably his results. His statistics. The amount of race wins that he's got. Multiple series. He was a champion in the Xfinity series, and he just was always fast. I think a lot of Carl, I think of Kurt Busch, someone that just always, when they got to the next level, they just performed really, really good right from the get-go. It didn't take them time. You didn't hear about, it took them years to kind of get it. They just got it right away. So I just think he was one of the most gifted drivers that you could put in any type of car, and he would adapt ultra quick. And so as far as talent level, I think that his talent level far exceeds actually what his win total was. So in my mind, I regard him really, really high. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Chris, and then over here to the left for 2 questions.
Chris Knight, catchfans.com. Denny, speaking of Darlington, what makes you so good there at Darlington with having 4 wins?
I think it suits my style. I think that typically how I approach a race weekend, just at that track, it fits how I finesse a car around the track. It's hard to kind of place it into words, but I feel like any track that I feel like I can manipulate the car by taking a different line, I feel good at that type of track. And that's a track where if you move down a lane or 2, or you move up a lane or 2, when I say a lane, I'm talking like a couple feet, you really can change the way that your car reacts. And I liked the task of those conditions, like I talked about with Jeff. Just every lap, the conditions and the rubber is changing, the heat is changing, and how fast can you adapt to that to make the best lap time? And so I think that it's just something that I've been good at for a while.
And if the opportunity ever allowed and everything came together, could you ever see 2311 expanding to more than just 2 teams, or are you comfortable at being a 2-car team?
I think that the stars would have to align perfectly, but certainly the climate that ownership is in right now, certainly with the uncertainties of what Jim's going to decide to do, it's way too early for that.
Harry Loomis, the podium finish. Denny, a couple questions. First off, a couple weeks ago, we saw Eric Jones have the back injury. I know you had one yourself, being that he's a former teammate. I don't know if you've communicated with him, offer him any advice or anything like that. But when you came back, we don't know when he's going to come back. Were there any tracks, any races in particular that wore out your back more than others?
Yeah, I think we went through the toughest one at Dover. That one really seems to be one that the driver goes under a tremendous amount of load. But each injury is probably a little different, between mine, Alex's, and his, and some others that have had that type of injury. It looks like Eric, possibly is going to be back much quicker than what I was, and Eric. So I think they're all different, but I just really fought feel of the race car for quite some time, and obviously if I was out for a longer period of time, mine probably was a little bit more extensive than his. So hopefully he's able to come back and have that same feel that he had just a few weeks ago.
And also, you came up in a time where just about half the field was running maybe Xfinity, maybe Truck Race the same weekend as the Cup Series. This week, obviously, no Xfinity, but there's only 2 Cup drivers in the Cup race running the Truck Race. Why, with weekends being shorter now than they've ever been, you being an owner, if you had a young driver, maybe for a second year, would you want them to get extra starts in those other series, or is the car now so different that it almost doesn't matter?
I would say I'd lean more towards it doesn't matter, although I think the trucks probably are a better indication of what a Cup car would drive like than what an Xfinity car would. And the dynamic is just so different now. The Xfinity races were filled with 20-some Cup guys at one point. So I think it's really hard to evaluate talent nowadays in the lower series, because it's just really hard to tell until they really make the jump into Cup. But all the track time that you can get certainly is going to be a good advantage for you, especially if you're very green and don't have a whole lot of NASCAR starts in general. So, certainly learning how to racecraft in whatever series it might be is a valuable tool before you get to Cup, for sure.
Okay, we're going to go to Steve Post, and then we're going to take 2 more questions after that. We're going to come over here to Caleb and Michael Massey.
Denny, Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. 2 manufacturers this year have new race cars. So much has been said about the Fords, and obviously you can't speak to that. The Toyota, the new race car you have this year, what are some of the big picture general things that you've learned about your race car, and just how do you feel about the way Toyota in general has adapted to that new race car as we're 11 or 12 weeks into this season?
Yeah, I thought that it adapted well. I'm really encouraged by what I've seen with the Toyota so far this year. It's been good at all types of racetracks. Speedways has been the one where we kind of qualified not well. That's the only kind of thing that I've seen that it's not even worrisome, because I was like dead last in Daytona qualifying and felt like I had a winning car. So it's I'm really happy with overall performance of it for sure. And it's doing everything that we hoped it would do. And a lot of that is because this is the first time that we got to design a Camry around a rules package that we knew was not going to be changing in the off season. So when we had the next gen car, when we designed the Camry for the first next gen, it was designed for a big ass spoiler on the back. And then in the off season, they cut the spoiler down, and that really changed the characteristics of our car. So we knew that the package that we've got this year, we designed the car around that, and we're seeing optimized results because of it.
Caleb Russell, SpeedwayDigest.com. Denny, there's the Kansas City Chiefs are there's a possibility that they could be playing just right across 435 over there, just in the Legends Kansas Speedway area. I was just curious, do you have an opinion about that? Is that a good thing, bad thing? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think anytime the area around a racetrack grows up and gets populated and gets more things, attractions around it, it's always a great thing for sure. So I hadn't heard that, but certainly it would be something that would be positive for the Speedway.
All right, we'll take our final question from Michael Massey.
Thanks. Michael Massey, Front Stretch. You did the Flying 11 throwback a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Hendrick got nominated for the first time for the Hall of Fame this year. What do you think? Do you have a case for him to get in there?
I mean, he was a little bit before my time, so I can't speak to it, very high educatedly that all his accomplishments, but you just kind of see what they are with all the modified championships and whatnot. I was just a big fan of his son, and Roy Hendrick. He was one of the local short track aces around the Mid-Atlantic that I always watched, and so I saw that Flying 11 going around Southside Speedway for many decades, and so I was always a big fan of the family. And, it had some Virginia roots there. So, that was something that definitely meant a lot to me. And certainly when Rick Hendrick, was able to bring out his Flying 8 car that he has in his museum to kind of put the two together. It was super special. So certainly, would love to see them, make it in. But I don't have enough knowledge about, his accolades to really speak on it.
All right, Denny. Thank you, and
right.
good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Yep. It's next door. Okay.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.